Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. Today for this show, we're going to talk about President Trump, what the new administration means for the housing market, what impact. Now, there's a lot of talk of these executive orders being signed, and what is that going to do? Well, we don't know for certain what's going to happen, but let's go over some of these executive orders, and I'll give you my thoughts where I think what changes, what's going to move the market, if anything at all. So the first thing that we have is the emergency price relief. That executive order was signed, that went out to all the different departments, and that is a responsibility of all now the different department heads to freeze any new regulations, to look at whatever regulations there are that is inflationary, things that would cost money. And let me give you a perfect example. HUD and the USDA recently approved a new energy efficiency standard on any new construction homes. Now, the home builders are saying this is going to cost $30,000 more per home to build. Now, it doesn't matter what side of the plate you are on this, if you think, hey, it's a good idea, better energy efficiency standards versus not. But the reality is, if it costs $30,000 more to build, affordability is an issue. So if President Trump, his executive order, halts that, well, guess what? Now maybe a house won't be $30,000 more than what it could be, moving forward. That just gives you an example of how these different departments can look at some of this regulations that are in place and how that could either save money or not save money. We don't know how it's all going to pan out. So there's also the executive order that he signed for, declaring an emergency for energy. Okay. Now, that can do a couple things, but what the administration is talking about is saying, hey, if we lower energy costs, then everything is going to be less money. Everything is either produced or delivered needing energy. So if we can produce more energy and we can drive those costs down, in theory, that will reduce prices across the board. Now, the only issue with that, and in theory, makes sense, right? But it's not going to happen overnight. That may take a year, 2 years to really get those engines running and really getting energy production online. So it's not going to be an immediate fix, but in theory, yes. If we can lower energy costs, then naturally the cost of producing goods are going to come down. Now, there's also DOGE, the Department of Energy Government Efficiency. Okay, now that is something. Who knows what's that going to look like, right? We don't know if that's going to get in place, what kind of recommendations they're going to put, and then what is Congress going to actually pass. Once again, it's not going to happen overnight with any of that. But in theory, if we reduce government spending, then in turn, inflation will come down. The definition of inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. Once again, too much money chasing too few goods. So to give you an example, if we go back to 2019, the government was spending $4.4 trillion. Today we're spending about $6.4 trillion. So $2 trillion more. Now the cause for some of the increased spending was COVID. You had PPP loans, you had the stimmy checks going out. So they, most people were staying home, not working, so they flooded the market with money. But why are we spending $2 trillion more today than what we did in 2019? Okay, it's a huge amount of money. And just so we have some context, the government brings in about $4.5 trillion in taxes. So if we kept government spending to 2019 with the revenues that are coming in today, we would have a balanced budget. We wouldn't be going into deficit spending. So listen, if we can cut, waste, fraud, and abuse, great. I mean, I think everybody's for that, but we know how politicians are, we know how government is, and they're so entrenched that, good luck. Who knows what's going to transpire there. But in theory, yes, that could be, anti or less inflationary if we cut spending. We also have, like I mentioned, hiring freeze, government hiring freeze. That was one of the executive orders that were signed. Also, work in person. All federal government employees have to come back, work in person. So that was an executive order that was signed. Now, part of that is you may have people not come back to work. They may turn around who moved out of state because they were working remote and they just can't move again for it. Their lives are already set in a different state wherever they're at. So the unemployment numbers may rise. We don't know. We have to see how that works. Obviously, if we have a hiring freeze, those numbers are going to, employment numbers are going to come down. And if you look at the government, they're the second biggest hiring in this country if we look month per month, on average. Health is generally number one, government is number two. So we'll see what that translates, what that looks like, what impact that will have in the employment numbers. Another big conversation is tariffs, okay? We don't know where these tariffs are going to go. Right now, the administration, they're talking about, we're going to put tariffs, 25%, 40%, 60%, 100%. They're throwing numbers around. If we know, and we can go back to 6-7 years ago, how tariffs were implemented, we had lower inflation and we didn't have these tariff, type of wars that you have. A lot of this is just for negotiation. It's posturing. We know, President Trump, he exaggerates. If he says, there's, 5 million of this, it was really 2 million. He just likes to overstate for a point. But it's a bargaining chip, right? With putting these tariffs to bring people to the table. So what could happen? Could prices go up? Absolutely. If we get into a tariff war, we put a tariff on a country, they put one back on us, yes, prices could go up. But the country or the business doesn't have to pass along a tariff. They could absorb some of that cost. That's what happened 6 years ago. China absorbed a lot of those costs, so we didn't see that inflation. Or we could negotiate, okay, and not actually put a tariff. Let me give you an example. The EU, the European Union, we have anywhere between 200 billion to 300 billion deficit with that. So if we want to sell a car in Germany, we have a tariff. They sell their BMWs, their Volvos, their Mercedes, and they may have a small tariff or no tariff at all, right? So fundamentally, it's unfair. But Trump could turn around and say, listen, we're going to produce a ton of energy. We'll send energy to you, so you're not relying on Russia. And in turn, if you buy 200 billion, and this is not just Germany, all of the EU, they turn around and buy 200 billion. Now our trade is balanced. We're not putting a tariff on them, but they're buying energy to balance. So there's a ton of negotiation that needs to go on to see, and nothing is going to be resolved in the first week, 2 weeks. I even think, in the next 6 months, we'll start seeing, and when I say just start, because I really don't think everything will be fully in place. And then also, Trump said interest rates have to be lowered. He could say whatever he wants, okay? It's free market. He could stand, yell and scream all he wants. It's just not going to happen. And it doesn't work that way. It's the market, interest rates, mortgage-backed securities, their bonds, their traded items, the Fed, they're independent. But a lot of these policies may do good in the future, may not. We don't know. We just really need to see how everything's going to play out. So right now, my stance is, let's wait to see. But I do know if we go back, 6 years ago, let's go before COVID, like 6 years ago, the market was pretty good and inflation was low. So our unemployment numbers were low, inflation was low, and, it seemed like people had money back then. Hopefully that will happen again. Who knows? Nobody knows. So that's my take on some of the actions of these executive orders and the bloviating of this administration, because there is bloviating. I mean, that's that's his game. But anyway, so I hope you enjoyed my thoughts, my feedbacks from it. Let me know if you have a different idea or if you have different comments. Always love comments. And be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Instagram and subscribe. Really helps out. Put some likes on there. Really helps out the algorithm. And be sure to follow future shows. I have some really, really good guests coming up. And you don't want to miss it. Some really good insights of their knowledge. Well, that's the Real Estate Show. Be sure to watch the show next week. Hope you enjoyed this show. And remember, this show is everything real estate, no limits. Talk to you soon.